Welcome to Anecdotes for Success with Matt and Paul. Storytelling is an art form, emphasizing the value and learning that is created through personal experience. Our purpose is to share these stories and experiences with the listener. Everyone has a powerful testimony. Let's use them to level up to our best life with truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective.
Matt Huffnagel, howdy. Season 5, man. We're not spring chickens anymore.
Season 5, incredible. Just incredible.
Yeah, and again, I credit this podcast for all the changes in my life the past couple of years. If it's helping other people, that's great too. I'm looking at it as a little selfish time with Matt Huffnagel every week. So
I kind of look at the same way. I mean, I look at, the time together and the conversations and such, and the way it keeps probably both of us moving in the directions we like to move.
Yeah, it's changed my circle a little bit. It's definitely changed the trajectory of what I'm doing. And the best part is I know you feel strongly about this. My wife's on board, and that makes it even more fun because
Way more fun.
we never have dull moments, and I have so much to share. It just makes it fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big part of my life too, and my experience in that, and having that, a lot of people, married couples, whatever, live somewhat separate lives. That can happen. I mean, you know people, I know people. There's nobody who doesn't know people who do that. And I think that can happen a lot when you're in the same routine, and you go in your own ways, and you don't have a lot to bring, maybe other things that bring you back together. One of the beautiful things about being in business with your spouse, which you are as well, is it allows for it has upsides and downsides like anything. Nothing doesn't. Trade-offs.
Yes.
But it certainly allows for more. For me, I feel like, same team and connection and problem solving together and success together and those kinds of things. I mean, I don't have anything in my life that I consider special that doesn't include my wife. And so yeah, it's a beautiful part of it.
Yeah, depending on the age you meet somebody, people just grow differently. And that's the weird thing about the longer a marriage goes, right?
Yes.
Grow together, or you grow separately, or you grow apart. As far as being a team has its ups and downs, it's great. I've learned to take constructive criticism very well because your partner's often your most honest business partner as well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But much needed, and no offense taken. I hope that didn't come out as a bad thing. But I don't have a partner that's just along for the ride, yes, in everything I do, because it's my money or my capital. I mean, everything's ours.
Yep.
So
Same way.
if there's a disagreement, that's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but anyways, that's not even how I wanted to start out, but I just thought that was fun to say. I mean, cripe, we could have pushed record 15 minutes ago when we were talking, which I swear someday I'm going to do that. Maybe next episode before we book a guest, we'll just go because we had good conversation. Sometimes it's stuff we don't want public yet, though. I mean, that's the downside.
Which is definitely true. Yeah, that's definitely true.
So New Year, everybody's always into resolutions. I'm sure gym memberships have skyrocketed and alcohol sales are down, right? And book memberships are up, and you name it. Health food sales probably skyrocketing. But I do like the concept of a new year and goals. I'm not one to say you have to start everything on January 1st. I'm more of a guy. I like to look back at what I did last year, and then now that gives me the perspective if I passed or failed to go on to the next year. Like I consider it a season almost. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Oh, it sure does.
I categorized, I did a little year on reflection. I categorized my year as a teacher, and I categorized it as a coach, as an entrepreneur now in several ways, as a podcast host, and then personal. And when I was looking back, I was so happy about all of them except the personal side. Because last year, I didn't go on many bike rides, I didn't
Mm.
go on many runs, I didn't play as much golf, I ate at a lot of food trucks. So, despite doing that, I let that aspect of my life falter compared to everything else. Yet the health side of it's the one thing I can control. I mean, if you look at me, nothing terrible, but I look,
Someone thinks highly of themselves.
yeah, no, I mean,
I'm kidding. I'm
my
kidding.
clothes all still fit. You know what I mean?
I do.
But I like looking back, and I like, no matter how successful you feel a year is, now you can dial it in and maintain all that stuff that you're proud of, but you've got to add something to the mix. And it doesn't mean abstaining and changing anything drastically, but I like to tweak each year, if that makes sense. And I know, watching your exponential growth the last few years, I mean, I'm sure you do something similar. You must have. I know you don't just think, oh, January 1st, look at us. You must have a thought process behind it.
Yeah, I have. You're kind of forced to look at year-end stuff just as a business person anyway, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
You're just it's just a natural part of the end of a year, financially and your business. So I certainly do look at that stuff. I have now, I guess, a decade in this, this part of the business, but in other parts to compare to, which is, you know, it's fun to look at. It's interesting to look at. I'm much more interested in how we perform percentage wise versus total dollars wise. If I'm talking about the business itself, um, because I think there's a certain kind of part where it really doesn't mean a whole lot. What matters, the performance to me is like how efficient are we being? There's a lot of things that matter there, but I definitely look at that and how we performed. This has been a strange year, 2 years. My wife and I had have a baby. She's toddler now, I guess, 14 months and counting. And the impact that's had on our lives and our businesses, just because we're so involved in them, and then raising her and putting a lot of time into that. Um, a lot. And she doesn't go to
As
babysit. She's with us 24/7 all the time. There's no break from that. Not that we're asking for one, but that's it's like our whole lives have changed in many ways. So um for me, the business aspect, I certainly look at that. Um but it's been such a strange couple years with the pregnancy leading into to the birth and now her growing up. It's like living different lives, in that sense. And it comes, there's been trade-offs. There's been trade-offs in the business. There's been trade-offs in the amount of time my wife and I get to spend alone doing the things we travel and the things we've liked to do. Certainly in terms of, the amount I exercise and some of those kinds of things. We always eat pretty well because my wife's definitely into that. But it's definitely a time of year of reflection and such. What it doesn't become for me is a time of lying to myself and telling and saying, "Hey, here's, you know, I'm joining the gym now and I'm gonna go, an hour and a half a day, 6 days a week." Knowing, just knowing it's not what's gonna happen, or those kinds of things. It's when your livelihood is built on the back of your business and there's no other income. There's no retirement. There's no uh, paycheck coming from another job. It's not a part-time job. There's a constant pressure to always be performing and always be. I don't get to take 2 weeks off and not get punished for it, right? People might think so, but
You can be prepared, but you're still going to be punished, right?
there's still going to be a price to pay. You
Right.
know, I say the best way I put it a lot of times is I get to work as much or as little as I want, and I get the consequences of either.
Mm.
And that's the best way I've thought of putting it. Um, so you know that I remember working for other people, and from Thanksgiving through New Year, nobody did anything. Everyone hung out, and it was just this. It was looking back on it, I'm thinking, my good, what did I do that? I think I did. Yeah, I don't live like that anymore. I don't have that. I paid too big of a price for that kind of thing. So although I look back, I do it briefly and it's more entertaining. A lot of it is to compare and see how I did, but I'm looking every week of my life, if not more. I'm looking at our performance. So, um, so there's no moment where I'm like, okay, now is the time to look and compare. I knew 2 months ago where we were going to end up, within a few dollars or a few percentage points or points of percentage points. So, um, it's not a big time for me or us. It's and maybe there's something that's not great about that either, because there's something that is kind of nice about looking back and some of that kind of thing. But I just don't have that's just not what I've done.
Are you happier than when you worked for other people?
I don't even know how to draw the comparison. Um, uh, there was a what I consider a silly feeling of safety when I work for other people. Like, oh, I have a job and every 2 weeks my paychecks come in and I know what I make, and then I know what I can spend or what I'm gonna do, and therefore it's predictable. And that predictable people love predictability, myself included. Everyone loves predictability about the future because then they can plan accordingly, right? One of the biggest benefits of a strong government, let's say, is you can count on the fact that it's likely, Paul, your 401k or your retirement's going to be there in 10 years or whatever. We'll go to a third world country and see if they have that same thought process. There's no predictability, right? It's very uncomfortable for people. So am I happier? I mean, there's just it's just such a different way of living. I'm much more um much more satisfied working for myself. I'm much more feel much more in control. Um, I I didn't realize I would. I expected to feel less than that. Um, I'm I've talked about it before. I don't love happy because it's so fleeting and comes and goes. Um, I've you know I life's gonna hit you one way or the other. It's you know, but I don't the the thought of working a regular job or something is just not something that I could really consider. But I'm definitely in a it's a totally different mindset. It's impossible for me to even compare.
Well, and the reason I say that is because I kind of knew you were going to say something along those lines.
Yeah.
And happiness is really in the process of what you're doing. It's not a state that you end at.
Love
But
it.
but you jumped in a long time ago and have never looked back. And very, very few people in the world, not just in the country, do what you do. I mean, of course, there's bigger fish, no disrespect, and but
Funny.
it's your journey, and you're what you are, and you could probably stop doing it, but I don't think you'd be as happy.
No, I definitely wouldn't have that joy because you're right. It's that process that's the fun part, right? The journey part, the
You could
adventure.
sell everything, and a year later, you'd be back into something.
I would.
If 6 months or whatever the
Well,
timeline is.
there's no doubt about it. There's absolutely no doubt about it. It's that is unless it was health related or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's 100% guaranteed. There's just no way not to. It's too much fun. Despite the challenges, which there are plenty.
My my friend Corey, that I now consider an acquaintance slash friend of yours, he always told me when I was building this summer, it gets addicting if you're not careful.
Yeah, I think that's accurate.
And the fun, kind of in a weird way, is in all the struggles too. Because you know that it's like a puzzle that you're solving.
Yeah.
So it's hard, but it creates perspective for good times. And it also is the fun of solving it, right? It's like winning the football game or winning the baseball. It's like a walk-off in baseball. When you are encountered a problem, when Matt Huffnagel solves it, it probably is like a rush. More than relief, maybe.
Yeah, and it's important too. You know, we're not just not out solving things that don't matter. They're important. Um, I heard this on a podcast or read it recently, something about that, and it just clicked with me. And I forget where it comes from, but anyway, if we think about something, whatever it is, solve that problem, right? Whatever. You got a roof leak, you got a financial leak, you got a problem with a relationship. When you put your mind, our minds are wired that they will just keep going as long as you keep thinking about it until it solves its problem. It's like a computer that just keeps the wheel spinning, right? And it will not stop until you solve that problem. That's uniquely human, right? Nobody,
Yeah.
no animal does that. That's what we do. And when I heard that, I thought, oh my God, that's what I do all the time. It's just, and then all of a sudden, you find a solution. You think you come to an answer. There's no, oh, it's 5 o'clock. I'll be back in tomorrow at 9, and then I'll start thinking about that again. That's why when I say there's no comparison, it's just like, no, that thing is in there and it is whirling, and your brain is actively looking for that solution at all times. And that's how you come up with great ideas and great solutions and such. So, I don't know how I got off on that other than
No, that's okay. And we talk a lot about, I mean, really not entrepreneurship, but about truth, meaning, trade-offs, and happiness. You can find all those things working in a career. And matter of fact, you had that foundation.
Yep.
I had it just for a much longer time. We've talked about how I feel a little freer, even though at the end of the day, I'm a bad boss away or a bad decision away from losing that career, right? But I think what I've learned the last couple of years is when you create something, it's made my career as an educator even more fun because I take more risks and think of new things to do with students that I normally would be afraid to do for the security of my position.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's to the point now, I was just telling you off air, my wife and I have conversations all the time now that even though we enjoy what we do, what could we be doing with these hours where we're at our career, creating more stuff and creating all that process and happiness that I was just asking you about? That's why I brought it up. And that's a trade-off. And it doesn't scare us anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. And you guys have made some tremendous leaps over the last year or two and more in other ways. And your mindset, just knowing you like I do and knowing your wife like I do, the difference in the conversations and the, you know, it's almost like you guys talk like you're not one bad step away from the pasture, like it's almost like you have a whole life ahead of you, which is so funny because we're at this weird age where there's a lot of people, at least that I know, who all they can talk about is retirement. And they're lovely people, but those aren't people I want to spend my time with. I want to spend my time with the people talking about what's next, what's ahead, what's the future look like for them.
Well, I just saw somebody this weekend. It happens quite a bit. I see a lot of retired educators because I'm getting close there myself. And boy, today's my Sunday fun day. No scaries for me tomorrow, because I guess that's a real thing in the world of work. Now, fortunately, I've never had that as an educator, but I know it's real, and I know a lot of people do. But two things there. If you have the scaries, why are you continuing that career? because in 6 months, I don't care what it is you're doing, you could jump out of that with a little sacrifice and consistency. But most people just suck it up like it's a thing
Yeah.
and then hope someday when they retire it'll go away. But you could have the scaries 15 years from now if the government cuts Social Security
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
or if your pension takes a dip
Right.
and you know, you could go down a Google rabbit hole and look at all the entrepreneurs that started after 50 years old, and it's
Yeah.
mind-boggling.
Yeah. It's enormous.
And again, it doesn't mean that's what you have to do, but when you quit working, you have to find something that gives you truth, meaning, trade-offs, or happiness, or you're not gonna have meaning or even know what to do. And most people do just by, again, going back and trading some time to keep them occupied to make a couple bucks, which is fine. But there's no nirvana at the end of your
No.
retirement where you
No.
just rest and do nothing.
And
It just doesn't happen. We're not wired that way. It just most people resist it. That's all.
yeah, we're not wired that way. I think that's just the best way to put it. Look, I don't care who you are, what position you're in, how much money you have, how much money you don't have, how popular you are, how many followers you have. We all have our problems. We all have our challenges. We all have, I think the key for me, and this is something I continue to try to work on, could be so much better, is how do I stay in the moment? How do I enjoy the journey and be less taken in by the results and and when I do that, that's when I'm truly in the zone, if you will. When I'm truly, I don't want to call it happy, when I'm truly experiencing life and what it has to offer. When I'm in that moment, when in those moments, instead of off somewhere thinking about the next acquisition or the most recent problem to solve, or when especially when you have employees, it can be very easy to speaking of rabbit holes, fall into these rabbit holes. But it's easy, if you have kids. I mean, I worry about my kids all the time. I worry about
Yeah.
my wife all the time. I worry about my family all the time. And trying to get into the moment more. If I could do anything, I think I would get. It's one of the reasons I love to read, Paul, is because it helps me get into the moment.
Yep.
And so I want to be in the moment more. And that's my kind of nirvana, if there is one.
Right. Well, my younger daughter always uses the saying, "Know where your feet are," and it's
Mhm.
basically the same thing.
Heard that said, yeah.
And
I'll say it.
and look at your toddler when they're happy,
Yeah.
right? Look at a little kid in kindergarten. Has nothing to do with the money. I mean, a byproduct of meaning and purpose and solving problems for others and serving others is going to be a successful, hopefully, lifestyle you can sustain with whatever your
Correct.
rules are for that and numbers are. But little kids are some of the happiest people I've ever seen in my life. It's nothing about the money. We just lose track of how to feel that way.
Yes, and it is so eye-opening. You saw my daughter a couple days ago, and
Yeah.
that's how she is, Paul, all the time, and nothing kind of breaks my heart more than coming out of some of those moments and going, "Oh God, I wasn't even there." You know what I mean? Not you
Right.
know what I'm saying? I mean, we all do
Yeah.
that, and
Don't be screwing it up.
right, right. Hey, I know, and
Well, there's too much. Little kids like your daughter are. There's no noise. It's just their world. I literally, right?
it is. My
And
God,
and
yes.
obviously that's going to change because
Yeah, yeah,
that's society. But if we can harness that, we can still feel that way a lot. Not
yeah.
100% of the time, but a lot.
There's so much to learn there, and so much to try to be involved in, and thankful for it. That to me is, it's just it's a lesson in the whole being in the moment thing, period. And I think one of the challenges for entrepreneurship entrepreneur like people is sometimes, because there's so much on us, that it can be hard to be in the moment, and because there's problems never stop. And you know, you're somewhere else. And for me, that would be the one thing, if I could be better at, or want to be better at, that would be it. That definitely would be it.
All right. Well, I think we've just figured out the name of this episode and our entire season. We're going to focus every episode on staying in the moment, which we do. But I mean, bringing people on that we feel do a good job doing that. You know,
Yeah, that would be great. I love that. I love that.
and if anything, it'll continue to help me grow. So thanks for coming on. I treat you like a guest, even though you're the co-host. I mean, that's how I feel like I'm learning from you a lot.
Well, vice versa for sure. But like, I mean, isn't that the point? At the end of the day, isn't that the point? It's like, how much growth have I had, right? How much have you had? How much is whoever you, the listener? It's like, how much are you growing? How are you becoming the person you're capable of being? And I know we're wrapping up, but I think of the people I admire, and they're not people that my admiration for them has nothing to do with what they do, how much money they have, or how big their house is, or how nice their car is. Nothing. It has everything to do with kind of where you started and where you are. Like, who who what have you become with what you were given? And that's where, the admiration is in my mind. It's not, hey, look, so and so's got, millions of dollars that they inherited from their, grandfather. Like, in a beautiful house and car. Who cares? So and so came from nothing, and look at the family they raised. Look at those children. Look how they behave. Look at the way they treat each other. Look at the way they treat their friends.
Yeah.
That's the person I admire.
They're hard
It,
to find.
yeah, hard. Yeah. We've got some screwed up ideals in, a lot of times, all of us, myself included. So
100%. Trust me, I'm not innocent in the process,
no.
but it's good to be back. We got some big gains to make this season, and I'm excited that you renewed your contract with me.
I'm excited.
I mean, with the podcast portal the way it is today,
They're gonna be gone. They're gonna be gone.
you could say I wasn't getting it, you weren't getting enough screen time, but you hung with me, so it's a yearly contract, so hopefully next year it'll
Hey,
be the same
hey,
way.
5 years is something to be proud of. The number of episodes, the number of people we've talked to, and the amount of growth and enjoyment we've gotten out of it is fantastic.
Absolutely. Well, we kicked off season 5. We will see you next week, Matt.
Sounds good.
All right, bye.